and good afternoon, and welcome everybody to our information session for graduate programs in education. We're excited to share some information about our programs, and we'll get started. So within this information session, we're going to provide an overview of the graduate programs that we offer within the Faculty of Education. We're going to discuss the features of our programs to help you decide if they meet your needs. We will review the admission requirements in order that you can determine if you're ready to start your application. And we'll look at more closely at the programs and the ones that we're accepting applications for, and those programs are going to commence next summer. And as Michaela mentioned, we'll wrap things up with a question and answer period as well. So we'll give you an opportunity to ask your specific questions if we don't cover them within the presentation. Okay, so within the Faculty of Education, we offer 3 separate degrees, and this includes a Doctor of Philosophy in Education. We do currently have 2 cohorts of students within their doctoral program, so we're not admitting students to that program right now. And if you are interested in it, you can just keep checking our website in terms of when we might open up applications for that. But we do anticipate it will be at least a couple of years. We also offer a Master of Counseling program, and that's actually just one of our master's level counseling psychology programs. All right, and we also offer, of course, a Master of Education, which we'll be discussing today. So within the Master of Education program, we have 3 majors. Specifically, we have the MEd, Counseling Psychology. Okay, so if any of you are watching and you're interested in the Master of Counseling or the MEd Counseling Psychology program, please know that we're not actually discussing that within this session. There will be another one later today, and both of those programs do lead to a career path as a registered psychologist or Canadian certified counselor. So if those are things that you're interested in, then we do recommend that you attend that different session. Okay, but the things that we will be looking at today include the Master of Education in Educational Leadership, and as well the Master of Education General. And as you can see there, we've got several study themes that we offer for the MEd General, and this study theme format is offered on a rotational basis. The framework for the program includes the core courses, but it also offers topics specific to the particular study theme. So specifically, we have the multiple literacies in Canadian classrooms. We also have curriculum assessment as one of our study themes. And finally, we have teaching, learning, and neuroscience. All right, so what are the features of our Master of Education, Educational Leadership, and our Master of Education General programs that might make these desirable for you? Why you might want to take these? Well, first and foremost is the fact that our programs are designed for working professionals. All right, so our blend of online and summer residency components makes this feasible. We understand that taking on a graduate program while continuing to teach is no small undertaking. The programs are designed to help you navigate the challenges of balancing both a master's program and your career. All right, one of the huge strengths of our program is our cohort model. And what this means, so if you're not familiar with this, this notion, the students are admitted to a cohort and they proceed according to the schedule with their peers. So students within each cohort really become a support network for each other, and this network lasts far beyond the timelines of the actual program. Our programs are course-based, so they're clearly aligned with the field of the study for the particular cohort, and they're taught by faculty whose research is in the area. Right, we also offer a culminating activity option. So in addition to your coursework, you're going to complete a culminating activity, and we do give you some flexibility in terms of what that option is. So you have capstone, project, or thesis route to select from. And while the majority of our students do complete a capstone, if you're wishing to undertake research, it might be that you opt for a project or a thesis. And once you're admitted to program, we do provide an orientation on all of the details associated with the various options, and you certainly are able to make decisions, based on full information once you get into program. And many times people actually change they may decide, oh, I want to do a thesis when I start my program, and they actually change their mind and switch to a project. So those orientations really do prove helpful. As well, another feature of our program is that they're affordable. So currently our total fees specifically for the MEd General and the MEd Education Leadership, it's approximately $12,500 for Canadian students. Now, it is more expensive for international students, and we do suggest that you check the fee schedule for amounts specific to your situation. Okay, so that cost is the entire 2 to 3 years of program, and includes your program fees, your tuition, as well as your miscellaneous fees. And the last feature that I'll mention is that we have almost 40 years of experience offering graduate programs within the Faculty of Education. And as well, we're no stranger to offering blended delivery. We've been doing it for several decades. So even though things in most institutions these days have gone virtual due to COVID, this isn't something that is new to us. So we've had plenty of time to figure out what works and what doesn't. And, we're able to help you successfully navigate a career and a master's program. So let's take a look at what the minimum requirements are for admission to our graduate programs. Oops, let me just move this a little. There we go. So for admission requirements, you will need to have completed a baccalaureate degree. So that means a 4-year degree, and specifically coming into the MEd Education Leadership or MEd General, they'll be looking for a BEd. You will require a minimum GPA of 3.0, all right? And I'll just take a moment to explain how our GPA calculations work, so that if you want to actually figure out on your own what components you need to look at to figure that out, then this may help. So for us in the Faculty of Education for master's level programs, your GPA is calculated on the terms containing the last 20 courses which have a grade other than a pass-fail. So if you want to calculate your GPA, you simply start with your most recent term, and you will count backwards until you reach the term containing the 20th course. Be sure to include all the courses completed within that term. So you may actually end up with more than 20 courses being utilized within the GPA calculation. And again, just make sure that you don't include anything that's a pass-fail. That doesn't count towards your 20 course requirement for that. And that's how you can calculate. And if you have questions, you certainly can reach out to our office. It is actually something that's calculated through the admissions office, but Kevin Mattis is an expert in calculating GPAs, and he can certainly give you a hand. In terms of other minimum requirements, we do require 2 years of teaching experience, and if it's appropriate, English language proficiency. Okay. So the next question is, what do I need to apply? So once you've determined that you've met or preferably even exceeded the admission requirements, you can start to pull together the components that you require for your application. And the application is completed online, which makes it a nice and simple process. Once you have the following elements that we're going to discuss ready to upload or to include with your application, the process actually only takes a few minutes and is quite straightforward. Okay, so first of all, you're going to need to submit your transcripts. So it's required that transcripts are uploaded for every post-secondary institution that you've attended. So even if you took just one course, you do need to make sure that you include working copies of that. And it is only working copies that are required to be uploaded at the time of application. Upon successfully being admitted, we will need final copies of your transcripts, but not at the time of application. Okay, something else you're going to need is 3 referees, so the contact information for 3 referees. We often get asked, I'm not sure that I can find an academic reference because it's been so many years since I was at university, and that's not a problem. So simply substitute a professional reference, and you just simply note their contact information within the application, and the references will be sent a communication, and they'll be sent instructions on how to complete. So you're not actually going to ask them for a letter of reference, you're going to ask them to submit a reference on your behalf. So please be sure to contact your referees before you utilize them as a reference. Okay, another item you're going to need to upload is the letter of intent, and that's simply going to outline your interest and your intended career outcome. And 1 to 2 pages is sufficient. Please remember that we receive many, many applications, and it's better to be succinct than it is to provide everything in the kitchen sink. You also need to provide a CV as part of your application, and only if it's required, you'll need to provide documentation of your ELP test scores. And within the system, it will actually indicate for you whether or not that's required. I'm just gonna take a quick break here and see if there's anything that I've missed. I'll ask Kevin Mattis, who's the expert in all things application related. Kevin, is there anything you'd like to add?
There's a couple things. One is that the application is a fairly involved process, so it's something you don't want to just open on the day before the deadline and work on. You want to invest some time, maybe a week or two, in preparing it and preparing the documents for it. And that's one thing. The other thing is because of our recent experience with COVID, there have been some institutions post-secondary that have awarded grades like CR or credit for work completed in those terms. If you have questions about how that's reflected in the calculation of your GPA, just contact me and I can walk you through how that's done.
Great, thanks, Kevin. So once you have all of the pieces, all those documents for your application ready, you'll be ready to submit your application. You can go in, like Kevin mentioned, you're likely not gonna submit this all on the last day. You're gonna go in, you're gonna create your application account, and it does save as you go. So you can start your application and pull the pieces together, kind of take a look at what the application involves, and then go back and finish everything off later. One thing that it is helpful to note is that when you first log into your application system, there's an area regarding the references. And so you can actually see what the status is on the reference. And you need to make sure that you actually hit submit so that the referee does receive the notification to write that letter of reference for you. And you can send them a reminder. So if you see that it's been a month since you asked them to write a reference letter, you can send an email that is a reminder for that. And applications may be submitted up to and including December 1st. Okay, so please don't wait until December 1st. Please do start the process earlier so that we can start to review things and contact you if there's anything missing or if there's any questions that we have about your application. But you do technically have until December 1 to start.
Susan, can I add something?
Sorry. Yep.
Just I wanted to add one thing there, that back with the letter of intent, when you write your letter of intent, just know that you're not writing to apply for a Nobel Prize. So you were trying to show us why you want to study and take this degree. So just be honest and be clear and to the point. You don't have to be all flowery. You don't have to try to impress us or anything like that. We just want a very clear letter of why you intend to do your graduate degree. And honest is best. So how you write that, actually there have been people who we haven't accepted based on their letter of intent. Either they didn't include enough, or they were so vague that we couldn't understand why they were actually doing their degree. So be very clear on your letter of intent.
Okay, thanks, Chris. So the programs that we're currently accepting applications for, now that you know if you meet the requirements and the pieces of information you need to apply, now hopefully you have an idea of which program you're interested in, but sometimes these presentations can help solidify that decision. So specifically, as mentioned previously, we'll look at the MEd Education Leadership and the MEd General Multiple Literacies in Canadian Classrooms. And both of these have a December 1st application deadline, and they both start summer of 2021. Okay, so our Master of Education in Educational Leadership program is not just for individuals who intend to be a principal. That is often what people think, but you may decide that you just would like some background in leading change and managing organizations, and you can certainly utilize these skill sets without becoming a principal. So, you know, as a teacher, those are skill sets that absolutely you can use to be a leader within your school or your district, but not necessarily as a principal, superintendent, and whatnot. However, if you do intend to become a principal in Alberta, then we absolutely have you covered. So with this program, you'll meet the Leadership Quality Standard, or LQS, required to be a principal in Alberta. So as all teachers in Alberta are aware of, last year, the LQS requirement was implemented, and this is going to meet those requirements. So when you successfully complete the program, your name is put forth to Alberta Education and you're ready to roll to become a principal. Okay, so looking at the schedule for the MEd leadership program, you can see that it's offered over a 25-month time frame, right? It includes on-campus components in July. So as you can see here, your July 3-week very intensive summer component is going to cover a lot of material. So each July you would cover 2 courses within that 3-week time frame. And while it is very intensive, it does allow you the flexibility of the remainder of the program being online, but very importantly, it still allows us to meet with you. So you take almost half of your coursework on campus, so you get a chance to meet your peers, meet the faculty, be a part of the campus, but it still provides you with that opportunity to take a master's program as a working professional. Okay, and as noted, all of the coursework that you take within this program are going to cover the competencies that are required for LQS. And this program is often likened to an executive MBA, that it's a bit crazier. It's a pretty intense time frame with the 25 months completion rate or completion timeline. But you know what? You get in there, you get it done, and you go on to take on a principalship, assistant principalship, what have you. Okay, so the other program that we're admitting to next year in terms of education programs is the MEd General Multiple Literacies in Canadian Classrooms. And this quote from one of our students sums things up so nicely that I'm sorry for just reading the slide, but I'm going to do that. So Sarah Gagnon, a current student in our program, had this to say: "For so long, we've put literacy into the box of reading and writing. This program has really expanded my definition of what literacy is, to include multiple literacies, Indigenous perspectives, literacy of the land, oral literacy, and that of my ESL students, and how I can transfer this knowledge into my classroom, and how I can allow my students to demonstrate what they know." So, this, again, we sometimes struggle to explain what this particular cohort or study theme is about, and I think Sarah just captured it really nicely. Okay, so just to follow up on that, the program will help educators consider how current research in multiple literacies, in English language arts, ESL, EAL, Indigenous literacies, can support effective literacy instruction. But keep in mind, as mentioned so nicely by Sarah, that literacy is not just a language arts classroom. Okay, so literacy is in all the subjects, and so sometimes people get confused and they think that it's just really specifically about reading and writing, and that's not necessarily what the program is about. Okay, so looking at the schedule for the MEd General program, you can see it's completed in 3 years, so it's a little bit different timeline than the educational leadership program. So from a working professional perspective, I actually think that this is such an ideal framework. So again, you've got a pretty crazy July, so 3 weeks on campus. It's a very intensive 3 weeks during that July term. However, the remainder of the coursework is completed online. And as opposed to the educational leadership program where some of those courses are mapping onto each other. So you're taking 2 courses at a time online throughout the remainder of the year. In this program, you actually have a break in May, June, and you have a break in August. So your course, you're just taking 1 course from September to December and 1 course from January to April in an online format. And so, you know, while it is 3 years, you have to stick with it a little bit longer. We do find that, well, both programs really do successfully lead to completion. But, you know, I think this one is a little easier to stomach over the 3-year time frame. Okay, I guess I'll mention quickly some of the future MEd General programs that that we'll be offering. So as I mentioned, we rotate through the various study themes. So as an example, though, if you're thinking of applying for the multiple literacy cohort, then this is the year to do it because it won't be offered again for several years. But other upcoming offerings include curriculum assessment, which is planned for 2022, as well as teaching, learning, and neuroscience. We just did an admission this year, so that's not planned again until 2023. So Chris, is there anything I missed in terms of the programs themselves, so about ed leadership or about the MEd General that you wanted to highlight?
Nope, you did a good job.
Okay, great. Whoops. So, you know, we're gonna provide you an opportunity to ask questions of us. And, you know, before we get into that, please know this is the email address that you can send any inquiries to. Kevin Mattis is the one who will be responding. And as well, I might just quickly show you some of the websites. So these resources, chances are that you have already gone to look at our future student website. And I just want to highlight for you where, if you go to the future student website on the U of L, specifically make sure you're on the graduate studies component of the future student site. And then when you go to programs and select that, it's just in the drop-down menu here, Master of Education. So this is the content for the overarching Master of Education program. You can see you can click within over to the side here within the majors and get a little bit more information specific to those majors. And it is on this main page that you're going to find a little more information about admission requirements, about the application process, and as well things like the supporting documents. So transcripts, letters of reference, CV, letter of intent, all of that is there. And again, if you wanted to look at, for instance, the leadership program, you would just click on here and it would take you over. So I just wanted to highlight that for you. So I think I'll just stop sharing now and we can commence our question and answer.
Great, thank you, Susan. And thank you, Chris and Kevin, for jumping in there. We do have a couple of questions. So I will start with a question regarding the application. So before a student or before an applicant starts an application, can they contact you to determine whether or not they're qualified for the program or discuss their credentials? Or does that just need to be part of the application process?
Kevin, did you want to speak
sure.
to that? Or?
Yeah, I don't, obviously I can't complete any official reviews of applications, but if you wanted to contact me to talk about like your degree background or your post-secondary background and how that appears or how that's regarded according to our program, those types of questions I can certainly field and I can certainly give you some answers to, for sure.
Great, thank you. What is the maximum allowable time that one can complete either MEd degree? For example, if someone with a young family needs to put their program on pause for any reason, how long are the courses they completed valid? So how long could they extend their leave for?
Yeah, sure. I'll speak to that. So it is important to know that because our programs are course-based and they're set to a specific schedule, it really is intended that you start the program and you complete as per the schedule of the cohort. So, I mean, the vast majority, I would say the vast majority of our students actually have young kids, you know, they're starting to take on leadership roles at school. Our programs are not they're not easy, but they're worth the challenge. And as long as you do things like, limit things like coaching, you're going to have to try and carve time out of your personal life as well. But it's better to plan right from the start. If I'm coming in, I'm going to complete this program as per the schedule. Having said that, there is a maximum of 5 years to complete the program. But if you're not intending to complete the program as per the schedule, then once you get out of rotation, it may become trickier for you to complete. And the other thing is that you're not within your cohort, and people will do almost anything to stick to their schedule to stay with their cohort because it is such a great support network. And then it's actually a second question about how long the courses are valid. So you have 5 years from the time that you start the program to complete it. So a three-year program with a maximum of 5 years to complete. And then courses are valid for 5 years. So if you dropped out of program, for instance, and then came back, you'd have to come back within 5 years of having completed that course, because and the other thing to think of is if you did end up coming back at a later date, then the program requirements themselves may actually change.
Great, thank you, Susan. Lots of really important things to consider contained in that question. Okay, there are two questions that are kind of similar, so I'm going to try to bring them together. Would it still be possible to register in an open studies class or two for this winter session? And so by winter, I think we're talking about the spring, the January term.
Yeah.
For example, to improve one's GPA. And another question that we get that's kind of related to that is whether applicants can take open studies classes before applying to or being accepted to the education program and what that looks like.
Okay, and one of the reasons that I went into that really specific detail about the 20 courses and the terms required, because when you start to calculate the 20 courses that we're going to utilize for your GPA, so you might find that in that term, because your 20th course comes with a 21st, 22nd, 23rd, you might find that by taking one course, you can actually get rid of an entire term of courses with lower grades. And so it's really worth checking out your transcripts and putting your courses sequentially. Again, start with the most recent term and work backwards until you get that 20th term, or 20th course rather. And then you can actually figure out, okay, if I took one more course and got an A, what would that do? And again, if you have questions about GPA, do feel free to reach out to Kevin. But overall, we do expect applicants to understand their own GPA, but given COVID, if you're a current student right now, as Kevin mentioned, there's been some crazy things going on where some institutions are not providing grades. And so Kevin can give you more information about that, or the admissions office at the University of Lethbridge as well.
I guess
I didn't, sorry, yeah. And I was just going to say, absolutely, it's possible to register in courses. The problem is that the GPA for courses that are, so unless you're actively registered in a course right now, it's not going to count towards your GPA. Okay, so it has to be on your transcript right now as in progress, or it's not going to be part of the application process because of the application being a deadline of December 1st. Only courses that are showing on a transcript as of December 1st will be calculated into your GPA. Sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
That's exactly what I was going to point towards. So that's good.
Great, thank you. Okay, can you please reiterate the 3 reference letters again? So I'm just gonna read this full question. Just the process of how one requests a reference letter and then how they're submitted as part of the application.
Absolutely. So what happens is when you log into your application, there's a referee section, and you enter the name and the email address for the individual that you want to act as a referee. And when there's another button that you say submit notification to referee or something along those lines. So there's a little button that when you push that, when you click on it, it's going to actually send that individual to it's going to send the message to the email you provided, and it's going to prompt them to log into our online application system. So you don't actually ask them for a letter of reference. They go into our system and they answer a series of questions, provide, they have the opportunity to provide a document, but quite honestly, that's not the norm. They just answer the specific questions that we're asking them within the online system.
Great, thank you. Okay. I have the equivalent of a 3-year education diploma in education in Canada from WES. I have to take a few courses to get a teaching license. Meanwhile, can I apply for the Master of Education?
I can answer that if you like.
Please.
Okay. WES, I am assuming, is the World Education Service. And so in this particular case, the 3-year education diploma was completed internationally and has been approved by WES to be equivalent to a 3-year credential here in Canada. In order to meet our admission requirements, you have to have an equivalent undergraduate degree according to the standard of our institution, which is a 4-year degree. And so if you have a 3-year background internationally, then you would need to probably attain at least another 10 courses or 1 year of post-secondary study that's recognized in order to apply for a Master of Education here.
Yeah, and one other thing to note is we do ask for 2 years experience teaching. So unless you had that, you're not going to be eligible for admission to the programs.
Thank you, both of you. Related to that teaching experience piece, Susan, one question we get quite frequently is what does equivalent experience look like? So if you're not formally employed as a teacher, for example, what is that? How else can that 2 years of equivalent experience be met?
Well, quite honestly, the 2 programs that we're speaking about today are intended for practicing educators. And for an example, with the MEd Educational Leadership and with the MEd General Multiple Literacies in Canadian Classrooms, they both contain components that need to be completed within a school or a district. And so to be able to complete the program, you need to be a teacher. There's not really any way around that. The programs are designed specifically, I don't want to say specifically for individuals in Alberta, because we have teachers from across Canada most typically undertake the programs, but you do need to be acting as a teacher or within a role, within the school district in order to be able to complete some of the components of the program.
Thank you. Could you please go into a little bit more detail about what the courses look like, particularly for the online component? Are these live online classes where you're expected to check in, or can students take them as fits their schedule?
Yeah, absolutely. So the courses are, well, you don't have a synchronous component to the online. So it's not Monday nights from 7 until 10 o'clock that you're joining your peers. It really depends on the specific instructor, which course it is, what type of course it is. Is it a practicum course, an internship course, a course that's covering theory? So they can look very, very different. Typically you might have discussion forum questions that you're answering. You could have group work that you're doing with individuals within your cohort. Some of the courses might be run almost like a seminar where you're actually creating a presentation and uploading it onto, we use Moodle at the University of Lethbridge. So, it could be that you upload this presentation and people are viewing it, and then you're having discussions on it that way. So there may be occasional components where you might meet, but there's not something specific. It's not specifically timetabled like the usual classes.
Yeah, it's a work at your own pace. That's why this is developed for working professionals, because we know that you're busy and you wouldn't be able to attend to a schedule. So we do it work at your own pace.
Excellent, thank you. That is always an interesting question when it comes to online programming, what exactly that online piece looks like. So thank you. Okay, our next question is, I am a retired teacher. I'm currently not in the classroom, so is it still possible to complete this program as per your previous comment about the program being designed for practicing teachers?
You know what, for that specific student, I would recommend reaching out to us. And so just email Kevin or myself, and we can put you in touch with individuals, the admission committee for the cohort, to talk about your specific situation. Yeah, I think that would have to be looked at it kind of an individual basis.
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
But that being said, I wouldn't dissuade you from applying, because everybody has their reasons to do a master's degree, and it may be that you have a very specific reason, and your letter of intent shows us that, wow, you're going to use this master's degree for your own purposes, and that's valid. So if you want to apply, we certainly welcome that.
Excellent, thank you. Great advice. Okay, Susan mentioned earlier that there's an on-campus component of both of the masters. On-campus may not be feasible for some applicants, so are there any options for completing the masters completely online?
The short answer is no. While it is a program designed for working professionals, we are very committed to teaching in both face-to-face and online format. And quite frankly, our experience has been that without that on-campus component, students are just not getting the same, they're not part of the fabric of the institution, of the program in the same way. So unfortunately, those are decisions that you're going to have to make in terms of where you want to apply and what the outcome of the program is that you want. Our programs, that summer institute component is absolutely an integral part of the fabric of our programs, and it's not something that can be swapped out.
And I'll just add to that. Thanks, Susan. It is such a big part of our program. One of our strengths that other programs are wanting to copy it on campus here and add the Summer Institute component. So we have people that move from all across Canada to come here in the summer for that 3-week period, and we have places for them to stay. We are even talking today in our grad studies office about arranging childcare for people that need childcare when they come for those 3 weeks. So it's a very, very, very important component of our program. So no, we're not going to be going completely online to answer your question. So.
And I can't recall if I mentioned that there is accommodation on campus though. So Kevin does make arrangements. There's sort of hotel accommodation. It's residences on campus that can be booked. And typically speaking, you're in an area with the other students within your cohort. So you're actually all usually staying, individuals from out of town are staying typically together in one area. And so it actually provides for, again, just one more opportunity to create that support network for each other.
Great, thank you.
Besides, we want to see you all, so that's important. Sorry, go ahead, Michaela.
No, yes, that's also a very important aspect of graduate education in general. Okay, our next question is, are there any more details that you could share regarding the MEd leadership internship courses and what these kinds of courses look like?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll maybe talk about both the leadership internship course and the practicum, and they are a little bit different. So within the Ed Leadership program, you will undertake an internship. So that internship is a project that you take on sort of on behalf of your school or your district, and you implement. The difference between that and the practicum in the MEd General program for cohorts that include that is it's more something that you're already doing within your classroom, but you're going to evaluate it in terms of your practice and how, so one has a little bit higher level of approvals in terms of your school and your district, and the other is just, you're going to modify how you're teaching, and you're going to evaluate the way you're teaching, or the tools that you're using, and you're going to use that within your practicum.
Okay, thank you. Regarding the number of applicants that you accept every year, is there a set number for every cohort, or is it based on how many applications you get in a given intake?
So typically speaking, our cohorts are about 20 students. In some years they fluctuate a little bit, maybe 18 to 21, but typically speaking, we're looking for approximately 20 students to go through program.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have anything to add to that one before we move on? Okay, so we only have one more question sitting in the queue. So I will say, if anybody has any questions they'd like to ask, I encourage you to enter them now, just so we don't miss them if we log off soon. Our last question is, I know this past summer, due to COVID, the master's program was done online, and our courses were primarily delivered online, and it seemed to go okay under the circumstances. So do we know when a decision will be made whether or not summer courses will be conducted online or not?
So I'll address that, since I'm on the committee that decides that. Our intention is to be face-to-face in the summer. That's our goal and intention, and we are hoping that we will be face-to-face next summer. And of course, we all want this pandemic to be over and this terrible disease to go away. And however, we actually don't make that decision, believe it or not. The province does. And so we have to follow a policy on post-secondary institutions. And it tells us whether or not we're allowed to have students on campus, or if we have to restrict students on campus, and what phase of reopening we're at. And so we are assuming that the Premier and Health Minister will try to open things back up in the spring. But you and I probably, if you've seen the news lately, you see that the United States have now just entered their third wave, and we're in a second wave. So the knowledge that third waves occur and could be likely is a possibility that we could be hitting a third wave in the spring. And if it happens, there is the possibility that we will be online again. But as I said, right now, our intention is to be fully face-to-face and bring everybody together and go back to normal. But we don't determine that. And we will probably let people know by March or April. And the reason I say that is we know how much work it requires to get people to come here and to do all that they need to do. So we try to make the decision early, but we'll see what happens in the start of the winter and how bad it is. We'll follow our health minister's recommendations, and we'll go from there. So I can't say one way or another, but our intention right now is to be fully face-to-face for the summer.
Thank you for that, Chris. Okay, we do have one more question that's come in. Is there any plan to begin Masters of Education on the Calgary campus? So could the face-to-face component be held in Calgary, given that the rest of the program is online?
Not at this time.
Not to say that we won't. Not to say that we're not thinking about that, but not this time.
Yeah, and we did actually, so in the past, we have had some of our cohorts offered several years ago now in Calgary. It just, you know what, you've only got to be here for 3 weeks, and we're bringing people in from across Canada. So it's actually nice for people to come and see the full University of Lethbridge campus. And we just don't have the faculty resources to be able to offer them, two simultaneous programs, one in Calgary and one in Lethbridge. And we're not trying to be all things to all people. We're going to offer the programs that we can with the experts that we have, and do it in a way that we ensure that the students are going to be successful.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Okay, one more question. We had missed the application documents, so could we review the requirements for the application, so the required documents for the application?
And
Sure.
I realized that they wanted to bring light on to what the curriculum vitae is, and so, or a resume, some people call it a resume. So it's just a brief account of your education, your qualifications, the previous jobs you've held, and you know, you'll list everything that you've done for us to give us a record of your past record of education and so forth. So it's a resume. If that, some people don't use the term curriculum vitae, but a resume is another way to look at it.
Thank you for catching that part of the question, Chris. I had missed that. I also want to mention that on our future student site that Susan had showed us earlier, there is a page that goes over all of the supporting documents for different applications for different programs. And so if you have a question about a particular piece, I recommend you review that page, and it goes into some detail about each requirement.
Yeah, I'm just going to quickly share that for them, Michaela, so that they can see what that is.
While
So-
she's sharing that, could I add something, Susan, while you're getting that ready?
Of course, it's here. I'll just maybe quickly show them because I'm already on the page. So if you go to the degree page, so whether it's Master of Counseling or Master of Education, as opposed to the major page. So on the Master of Education degree page, you'll see admission requirements. Okay, you'll see the application process, and then you'll see all of the supporting documents here, and there's something specific to the CV. So hopefully that's helpful. Over to you, Chris.
No, it's good.
Okay, well, our Q&A queue is empty right now, so I'm going to take that as a sign that we've covered all of the information that folks are looking for today. But as Susan shared at the end of the presentation, there is an email address that you can reach out to contact either Susan or Kevin. So I'm going to thank our speakers, all three of them today. Thank you for sharing your expertise and some information about the programs. And I'll turn it back over to you if there's anything else you'd like to add.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you to everybody for attending. And I'm not sure if Chris has got any further comments, but you know, everybody stay warm. It's very snowy down here in Lethbridge at the moment. So I hope you're all in warmer locales than we are.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thanks, Susan, for leading that, and Michaela for hosting this. We would strongly encourage you to apply. Even if you don't think you qualify, we can give you advice in that area. And Kevin can take email questions. And if you have anything that you'd like to know more about the program, please feel to reach out, and we'd be glad to help you through the process. So don't be afraid to ask. You know, you don't know until you ask. So we're here to answer any questions that you have.
Great. Well, thank you, all three of you, and thank you to our attendees. I hope today was helpful in your decisions to apply for a graduate program at the University of Lethbridge. As always, reach out to us if you have any questions or concerns, and I hope you stay warm and healthy, and I hope we see you on campus as soon as we can. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.